Hello and welcome back to our next review. I'm Captain Cetaris and I'm joined again by Seven Saturn.
Hi there.
And in the chat we have FarOut, the creator of the Widescreen mod for Far Cry. Welcome! Before we start, let's get some background. What are you doing in real life? As you can see in the background today, we have a look at Far Cry from 2004. The story of the game is very simply, basically an ex-soldier has to rescue a sexy lady from the evil Dr. Krieger who makes some special mutants. Okay, let's start with our first point, the history of the game. The game actually started out as a tech demo made by Crytek to demonstrate the capabilities of Nvidia's new graphic chip, the GeForce 3. The name of this project was Exile, and originally included diners and aliens, which was later changed to mutants. After the release in 2004, a software development kit was released, which was a big thing for the modding community. Now they finally could do better and bigger things. In 2005, a 64-bit upgrade was released, which was very unique back then. Only UT 2004 had a similar update. In 2006, the last official patch was released, which fixed a lot, but also broke a lot. For example, water reflection and VSync was broken, and the AI could now see through the walls. Also in the same year, Crytek sold the franchise to Ubisoft. In 2008, Far Cry the movie was released, a very bad movie, but at least the game had a movie. And then in October 2015, 11 years after the release of the game, Ubisoft finally shut down the master servers, which meant no more multiplayer via the in-game browser. But luckily a community fix called The Last Resistance fixed this for us. So guys, next point, when did you buy it? I bought it directly at release in 2004.
Well, I actually didn't buy it because in Germany you cannot buy Far Cry 1. Here's something called the index, and if certain games are too violent or showing certain contents that are not viable for younger people, then you have a very big chance that it gets on this list, which is kind of a blacklist, which means you are allowed to sell it, but you are not allowed to advertise it in any way, which keeps me from having it here. Which is kind of funny because Crytek, the development company creating Far Cry, is actually a German company, and they even went through that length that they altered the game in the hopes that they would avoid getting on that blacklist. And even today you simply cannot buy it, so it was for nothing, this effort. So I have actually no chance to really buy it officially, but I got it from a friend and, well, so to say, it's a few years ago, cannot quite point my finger at it, but I would say somewhere around 5 years ago or something like that.
And how much did you play it?
That's the funny part. I started the single-player campaign, as I believe most novice players did, and well, I only came to this point where you are on this freighter kind of ship, and I got stuck there, and I was that frustrated because I found some parts of this game really unfair. So I didn't get really far at this point. So, well, wasn't too much fun for me. So I didn't get really far.
But you, of course, as a German player, basically heard about it back then because everybody talked about it.
Yeah, of course. I was aware of the game, and of course you have sources where you can get the game. As I said, I didn't really buy it because I simply couldn't buy it officially. And you know the drill, you get it from a friend, if you know what I mean. Someone got a copy from it, and yeah.
Okay, so you didn't buy it at release, just years later. And did you also play the multiplayer intensively or just single player? Okay, just single player.
Well, I just had my very first multiplayer experience a few minutes ago, actually.
Yeah, I took your virginity.
Yeah, kind of. And, well, it's different than I would have imagined it. But, of course, if you are, like we were, 3 players on one map, it's not really fun. Not because of the game, because well, you are 3 players, so yeah, it doesn't work like that.
Oh yeah, I can understand that. I would now go to the pros and cons. So what are your pros?
So what is definitely a big plus, so to say, is this open world feeling. I mean, essentially, you can roam around almost everything of the map as long as you don't get too close to the borders of the map, and that's really something cool about it. You can go through the forests and even get through the bushes and something like that, and really have this feeling of being in a jungle and roaming around there. Which is a nice feeling. I never really had the feeling that it is really an open world game, because essentially you are still tied to certain map spots which you have to reach, and there are not physically that many ways that you can reach this point. So you can roam around, but actually it's still very narrow, or only a few paths where you can get to this point. But from the feeling, it's really nice.
Yeah, I also have to mention the open world. Yeah, definitely, FarOut, you're right that the gameplay is satisfying, and I would say the only reason why now people are buying it and play it for the first time, because somebody mentioned it, that it's good. So my pros were basically also big open island. You had, which was back in 2004, really amazing vehicles. Basically, I think only Battlefield 1942 did before that. Maybe UT 2003 had some, but I'm not sure about that. Also, which is good, is that the AI is using different tactics every time you engage them. They use an alarm system where they call for reinforcements, and the reinforcements really takes a few minutes, so they are not instant here. They come via helicopter, lands, you have the chance to kill the helicopter before troops are there on the ground. And I would even say, without Far Cry, maybe we wouldn't have a Just Cause or Assassin's Creed, because the checkpoint system and everything is in a kind of predecessor to those games, I think. Which I also like is the gunplay, the feeling if you're firing the gun is not bad for 2004. And if I'm going back to the big open island, the freedom which Saturn mentioned was great. I always amazed how speedrunner use the different features of the map, sometimes bug of the maps, to progress in ways I would never dreamed of. Yeah, mod support is definitely a big pro. So that this is a feature which is basically lost in modern games. Definitely without SDK, the modders are so limited. But with every game, you of course have cons. Saturn, tell us about the cons of the game. You mentioned already a few.
I believe the biggest con for me personally is that the game sometimes really has damn unfair situations in store for you. I distinctively remember 2 of them. One was on this freighter ship. In the beginning, I mean, if you are not having a lot of health there, it's tough. Okay, all right, but you can get there with a decent amount of health. But I remember one situation where you climb out on top of this freighter, and you have a helicopter in front of you with a Gatling gun. You have 2 guys on the left shooting at you. You have 3 guys on the right shooting at you, and you have 1 guy behind you shooting at you with a machine gun. So you're fired upon from 4 directions at the same time, and quite frankly, this is crazy. This is just nuts. And you can manage these situations by reloading the checkpoints, but it's really annoying. And another one was really evil, I believe, because there's one situation where you have to meet your contact on a peer-like situation. You are supposed to wait there for him, and before you do so, you have to secure the area. And There are two possibilities. Either you already noticed the guy on top of the checkpoint which you already passed, and if you get to notice this guy on top of that thing, then you can take him down with your sniper rifle and you're done. But if you did not notice this, then you end up at this situation where there are 4 guys you have to take out, and from behind, from I believe a mile distance or so, you are being fired upon with rockets. You have no idea where they are coming from. You're just noticing somehow I'm getting a whole lot of damage, until you realize, well, that's the guy I passed a mile ago or something like that. And again, it's not really funny. And this is really something that pushed me away from the game, because if you play a game on easy, and it's really far from being easy, then I believe it's not fun. I mean, I do like a challenge, but sometimes it's just unfair, downright unfair. And this is something I'm not really into.
I also think the difficulty is sometimes so off. There's this one place in the game where you have to wait for the enemy to come. They will reinforce basically the position. At the same time, a boat, also nearly 1 kilometer away down the beach, will fire on you with mortar grenades, which pinpoint accuracy will kill you with 1 hit, and you are not in line of sight, so he can't see you. And this is really unfair. Of course, you can do it with tips and tricks, but for a new player who plays the game on easy, it's really not nice, I would say. I played the game on every difficulty level back then. I really loved it, and I still think it's amazing. But this is really a big con for a new player. Also, I have to say, the guns. Every gun had an iron sight, but they disabled it. So it's already in the game, but they choose not to include it into it. And of course, I have to mention the same weight system as in CS. If you use your knife, you will be the fastest. If you use your sniper rifle, you are the slowest. Really? And then only 4 weapons? That's also a very strange developer choice. Even the whole stamina system, they should have redone, I would say.
Well, but it's already kind of a progress. If you remember back then, Half-Life didn't have this stamina stuff, and many games didn't have it. And from a feature point of view, it was a nice idea. So it cannot just run around on the whole island, never getting into sweat or something like that. The idea was sound, I believe.
Yeah, they had one design decision basically, and only because I think it's not good doesn't mean I'm right. True, it could be that the limit of the weapon choice is a kind of difficulty level. Good, our next point would be what makes the game unique today. I would say the render settings are really unique. You can set it to comic look, you could set it to a cold look, to an tropical look. This is really... I wouldn't know which game ever did this back then. Then of course you have the nice ragdoll physics engine, for which you back then even had to use a special physics card from Nvidia. Also, like I mentioned, big open world, first 64-bit game. Quite nice for one game to include that many unique features.
The whole graphics itself, I mean, the combination of open world kind of feeling and really good graphics, back then it was definitely a new thing. Yeah, and of course today you would say, oh, well, it has aged kind of well, but today you have different standards. But back then, 2004 it was, imagine 4 years ago you had Quake, and there's quite a big difference for only 4 years. But then again, of course, as you said, you needed to have the proper hardware to really enjoy this.
It's hard to say if it's a con or a pro. If you have a game which is really so good that you need a PC from the future basically to completely play it.
It's a little bit crazy, kind of. If you imagine they were testing their own game. I mean, I'm 100% sure that there were some guys who had to test this game, that it works properly, that the maps work out, and so on and so on. And imagine you actually cannot really test the game for 100% settings because you simply lack the ability to obtain a computer which is able to run the game with these settings. It's kind of crazy, and not sure if this was actually intended or not, but if you look at it from a developer's perspective, of course it is always useful to have something stored in your engine that could go for the future. I mean, there are some games which are just state of the art, and 3 years later they are not anymore. And I believe when it comes to the Cry engine, we had the Crysis game later, and it set a new standard, and it was done on the same engine. So maybe they were not actually intending to overwhelm current hardware. And as you said, Far Cry was kind of a live demo for this engine, so it's probably just some side effect that you had to have a really good PC at your disposal.
Definitely Crysis is the real Far Cry 2, because basically it's the same developer team. They just use their own engine and their own ideas and everything. Far Cry was basically sold to Ubisoft and forgotten. They just did whatever they wanted, which wasn't good in my opinion. Yeah, definitely. I also think many people don't know Far Cry 1, because the real problem I had now for the research of this game is Google never gave me Far Cry 1. I just had Far Cry 5, 4, 3, but the search results were always not what I wanted. Yeah, I saw that the CryMods website is gone. Was this a website from the developers? Not a community site? Which would be really an asshole move, basically, if they kill the CryMods. That's really unbelievable that a company is really deleting so much content from the community. At least sell it.
My question is, who actually did run the show here? Was it Ubisoft or was it Crytek, actually? I'm not sure. I mean, imagine you have sold the rights on the titles to another company, Ubisoft, and you are Crytek. Then of course at some point you would want to end your involvement with this. But then again, I believe if it served for multiple Far Cry titles, then I would say it was from maintained from Ubisoft. So I'm not sure, but if it were done by Ubisoft, then it is really a dick move.
It doesn't matter which of the developer or publisher did it. As a company, it's really a bad move to basically fuck with the community.
But you can kind of relate to the reasoning behind it. In case of Crytek, you can say, well, they're not making any money with those titles at all anymore. So you got expenses. Of course, it would be better to see to it that the content itself gets a new home somehow. I can understand that. But if it were done by Ubisoft, which still make money with the titles, then you can totally not understand it at all. This is what I was getting at.
Yeah, but basically as a developer team, we mentioned this both in discussion many times, the product is your baby. If you delete stuff for your baby or from your baby, basically, it's really amazing that some people do this.
I believe that's not entirely accurate. I believe to maintain the picture here, it's more like you get stuff from your friends for your child, and then you just throw it away. So the child, of course, is still yours, but the stuff someone else brought to you, it isn't that important to you.
Okay, the presents from the neighbors.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Okay, then I would say let's tackle on the next point. What could a sequel, in the sense of a sequel for Far Cry 1, do better? I would say definitely, again, like last time, co-op mod or co-op play is so essential for a game, I think. Doesn't matter when it was released. Then of course I would say a little bit easier on some sides, and iron sights. I need my iron sights on the weapons.
A little more balancing, I believe. That would be nice, but all in all, I would say the game would have been one of my favorites if that were not such a big issue. So the game itself, I believe, is just fine. And of course, if they ever would do something like that, maybe not a game that you cannot really play on 100% on any hardware obtainable.
At least a better widescreen, because widescreen is there by default, but it's not that pretty. You made it much better.
Well, I believe in general, games back then were a little bit strange when it came to aspect ratio. I mean, you can of course create a engine, like for example Quake did, that, or IT software did with Quake, that can handle any aspect ratio. So why would you want to limit yourself to a certain aspect ratio? And especially if you look at Quake 3, the game already was able to show some widescreen resolutions by default. And remember, it was from 1999, and that was 5 years earlier. So from my point of view, it's simply not a sound decision to create a game which is tied to a certain aspect ratio or which has real issues with changing that.
Well, we can take this as an introduction also for the segment for your mod, FarOut. How did you come to make this mod? Was it easy? Was it hard? Okay, that's really amazing. Because if I had to do something similar, holy cow.
Well, it's always a question of motivation and time, I believe. If you are really motivated to fix that problem, and you get the time for it, and get at least a little amount of talent for it, then you're good. I believe many projects don't lack a person with ability or talent, but a person which is motivated. Because if the effort is too big for your motivation, then you will simply not go through with it.
How long did you need for the whole project? I saw you released basically your final version now. I saw you also had some fixes. Was this easy to fix the AI bug with the tents or the other things? Okay, I see. And what about the future? What can we expect from the mod? So basically you want to make the ultimate bit of view mod.
Well, actually kind of doing the job the developers were supposed to do.
Yeah. But like we mentioned, in 2004 nobody thought about widescreen. It was basically on the bottom of the list to do.
Yeah, of course, it's always kind of a budget question. You will have to invest some time and effort, and therefore also money. And I can understand why someone would not choose to do it with the intent to edit. But if you were intended on developing it the proper way right from the start, then you wouldn't have to do a lot more effort, I believe. This could have been done on the fly along with all the other solutions they had to program in order to get the game working.
And FarOut, do you want to include more mods to your own mod or more bug fixes?
I believe it's always a good idea to go for this kind of design, to make it, as you say, opt-in, so it doesn't mess up other things. The other games where I already experienced when simply adding a map breaks another map already, and the best way to go really is to see to it that it won't interfere with other aspects of the game or technical aspects of the game. So therefore you can use it when you need it, and you can leave it there when you don't want to use it or you cannot use it.
And would you say now you're happy with the progress of the patch now? Because I think you coded a finished version. Is it where you wish from the start it will be? Basically, there should it be, or is there still a lot of work to do? Yeah, tell us about the modding situation basically. Where is everyone? Is everyone on mod database or on their own Discords? I only know about the Far Cry 1 community and the Crossfire community. Back in 2004 or 5 there was a co-op mod which was really broken, but at least there was some. But I didn't find anything now, which is really sad. Well, maybe in the future, if the modding community is still alive, maybe somebody does something. And I have the feeling you work with the Last Signal guys, since they use your Widescreen mod. You mentioned this name before. What will this include basically, the beta restoration project? Okay, did you find this content in the game, just it wasn't activated, or do you make everything from scratch and old screenshots? I will follow the mod database and see what in store for the future. Okay, I would say let's move on to our last point. What special memories do you have of the game? I guess Saturn you won't have many or any.
Well, of course, you could call it special memories when I did the very first single-player campaign and really got busted that easily. And yeah, so it's not a good memory, of course, but definitely a special one, because there are only a few shooting games where I really, at some point, were thinking, well, let's forget about this, and that probably 10 or 15% into the game.
I have also too, playing this game for the first time on a big TV. This was really amazing. I had the whole TV set up close to my PC, connected everything, and if I remember correctly, I even taped it on VHS back then. So basically my first Let's Play. Also that I really was crazy little bits back then and played the game on every difficulty at least once, sometimes even twice. I think I never did this before and after. Yeah, I quite can understand that you're proud of your baby. Made something amazing. It's always good to have people like you bringing something fresh to an old game and keeping basically that way alive. Good, then I would say let's do our last point, hidden features. Which hidden features do you know of?
Oh, that's easy. None.
Yeah, for you it's easy. But for a noob like you, did you know that some vehicles have a rocket launcher?
Yeah, this I noticed. Only thing that really bothered me there was that it was not quite as obvious how to switch the weapon. I believe this is probably what you are getting at, that many players don't know how to switch the weapon, and actually the ships have rocket launchers, some of the cars do have them too, and yeah, you kind of notice that when you are shot at by those, because I believe all of the vehicles you are using are driven or used by your opponents at some point in the game, and you notice, well, they got a rocket launcher, so there must be a rocket launcher on board somehow. So then you try a few things and you notice, yeah, okay, I can switch the weapon.
Yeah, that's sadly the game doesn't tell you. And also we have at least 4 hidden messages Basically, they have just 4 signs on the map randomly placed with cryptic messages. You of course have the evil freighter, the boat where you have to fight the helicopter is in Cyrillic writing, there stands evil freighter. And of course you have the evil science magazine and the Playmerk, the spoof to the Playboy. Yeah, this is amazing what the speedrunner community achieved in this game. But like you said, it's a lot of cheating involved. I know also there is the missing spine where you have to go down a tube to find the spine from a skeleton which is up the floor basically. It's just dropped.
I'm wondering, what do you mean by game breaking? Game breaking in a sense of it's so overpowered, or does it actually get you into technical trouble?
I think I have to try this. Okay, this is the part of the video where I would like to ask you if you have anything else on mind, anything you would like to tell the community or us. To try modding, okay. That will be hard, I guess. Most people nowadays don't even know how to install a patch. But if anyone wants to try it, do you know, are there any manuals for the sandbox editor? Good, because I think it's very important for a newbie to have these manuals. Well, I would say that's everything for this video. FarOut, thank you for joining us, it was a pleasure. And you're always welcome to join us again. Like always, leave us a comment, tell us what you think about the game, of course play the game, and until next time, bye!
Bye bye!